much, Madam Chair. Look, the Minister's given us some really good further understanding of how this sort of car provision is going to work. So what he stated, and if I heard this correctly, that you can't sort of like get your jacket up like that on the back window, that's out. But if you were driving your car and your patch was on the back like that, that might be okay. But what happens if he was in a car crash, not a serious one, and he happened to slam up against the window? Would that be out? So I think it's really important when we're talking about what is display from a car. And I think that it's really important for us to understand this because if the provision that was brought in after the Select Committee process, which has had quite a bit of coverage in the media, the point of that there will now be a power for police after someone's already been warned for wearing a game patch. They can go right into their home, and even if it's in a drawer or a chest of drawers or in their wardrobe or under the bed, that's a penalty. But this one is saying that if they're not displaying it, that's not a penalty. So my concern is you're giving mixed messages to the gang community on what to do with their patches here. And so what is display? Is that pushing it up, that you sort of said already that's pushing it up against the window, but it does seem to be inconsistent with this new search power that you've introduced where if they've got it in a drawer in their home, that's infringing the provisions that are in the bill. And also, I would really like to understand, because we haven't heard this in any of the debate, and I think the general public want to know this, what was the thing that changed your mind, Minister? So when in March, when police were asking for that additional power, did they discuss this car thing as well? Did that come up back in March? And what was it between then and sort of June, July, where you whacked this new search power in, and then now where we found there's an additional requirement to include a provision for cars and displaying from a car. Was there any sort of particular information or advice that you received from police or from other agencies that caused you to change your mind and include the later provision and this provision so late in the piece? I mean, this was legislation that was talked about right through the campaign period, which is nearly a year ago now. There would have been some significant considerations of how this policy would work, but it does seem from the sort of litany of repeat mistakes over this whole course that it has not been very well thought through in terms of how it's going to be implemented, and it doesn't really give a whole lot of trust and confidence in terms of how it's going to be effectively implemented if you're still coming up with new ideas so late in the piece. And so the point I think would be really useful to hear, just to recap, is it the display? What happens if you're sitting in the car? Is that where does the line lay in display? But also to understand exactly what the thought process was of the Minister for this second thing in this whole course of legislation to be introduced outside of the normal course of policy and legislation making, because it does look like it's kind of policy on the hoof. You're just kind of throwing everything at the wall in the hope that it's going to look pretty tough, but it's kind of the perception as it's giving is a general sense of disorganisation in terms of understanding how police are going to effectively make this work in terms of law enforcement. So the main one, really keen to hear, patch in the car, what happens and what is classified as display. If they're wearing the patch in the car, is that okay or not? At what point is turning your back to the window classifying as display?